in the summit, and today we are going to shine a little light on ourselves. So we're going to look inward to see who we are at Climate Healers and what we do, and what our purpose is, and why are we organizing all this, and what is this Pinky Promise tour? First of all, what is a Pinky Promise? How did it even come about? So it's a little bit of an introspection, and also at the same time, it's about education. So it's about education as us being climate healers and how we see our path forward in this troubling time. Actually, Deborah, if you have that slide, I can just show people what we are talking about in the context of COVID-19. So COVID-19 to me is because we've always used the metaphor of the caterpillar and the butterfly in our storytelling at Climate Healers, so that we are the caterpillar, the species that is turning from a caterpillar into a butterfly. And I see COVID-19 and what's happening here now as the earth putting us into the Chrysalis Phase. Saying, okay, now you stop doing whatever you are doing, the over-consuming, and think about how we are going to become butterflies. And within the Chrysalis Phase, I see there are three zones, the three stages of the chrysalis. The first time something like this happens to us, we have a lot of fear, which is natural because it's a transformation that's happening. So we go into panic buying, we get annoyed, and then we stock up on things that we think we may run out of. So that's the fear zone. And then you move from that and you start looking at, letting go of the control, letting go of the idea that we are in charge. No, we are not in charge. We've never been in charge. The earth has always been in charge. Nature is so much more powerful than us. So then we stop consuming and start looking at what is it that makes us feel better. So this is the learning zone. And we are in this learning zone. This summit is part of the learning zone where we are learning about the disease and how we deal with it, how we solve it, how we get out of it, and what we do now, right? And recognize that everyone is in the same boat. We are all learning as we go along. And finally, we get into the growing zone. And this is where the work of the Imagine Ourselves happens, where we think about how we help others find our purpose in life. So we are imagining the butterfly, and we are imagining what part of the butterfly do we want to be? Do we want to be the wings? Do we want to be the proboscis? Do we want to be the head? So it's where do you fit in this larger picture of how to help others? And in this case, it's helping other species. It's not just other people, it's helping other species, helping life thrive. How do we give more than we take back from nature? This is exactly what Jim Hicks was talking about when he said, he's quoting James Lovelock, who said that humans are not going to be sustainable until we start giving more than we take. Yeah. And that is the fundamentals of sustainability. It's about being grateful, and living in the present, seeing this for what it is, that we are in the chrysalis phase. And there is no going back to being a caterpillar. And so then figuring out how we do that. And to help me with that, so many people have joined Climate Healers, and they have been working selflessly, and I'm so grateful to them every day, every week. Deborah, who's organizing this webinar, Suzanne and Benjamin and Anne, who have been working with us on the Pinky Promise tour. So thank you for joining, and it's a pleasure to work with you, even though I haven't met Suzanne. And I was planning to do that as part of the Pinky Promise tour. And of course, now it has become a virtual tour. So first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming. And please introduce yourselves and tell people how you got involved with Climate Healers.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having us here and allowing us to talk about what we've been working on with with you and with everybody else involved in Climate Healers and the Vegan World 2026 project. It's been incredible getting to know everybody.
Yeah, we got involved with Climate Healers. We were in a period of transition. We had built a tiny house and were living on a veganic farm and animal sanctuary and enjoying it a lot. We were both passionate about changing our food system, and a friend told us about the summit that was happening, the Climate Healer Summit, before the Vegan World 2026 conference.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how we first were introduced to you at the previous conference. And it, we were trying to figure out what our next steps were in terms of growing veganic food and helping the animals, helping farmed animals. And your talk during the summit really tied together a lot of issues that we were hoping to work on, and it just felt like a no-brainer trying to get more involved and learn more about it.
Yeah, and the holistic approach that you take, Dr. Rao, was really refreshing to see all of these different perspectives on animal agriculture, from environmentalism to food to social consequences. We hadn't heard it all put into one nice, neat package before, and we were kind of looking for a way to become through learning about veganic agriculture and taking care of animals ourselves. We really wanted to start figuring out how to align our actions with our values in every way that we can, and started looking for, well, what group do we want to work with? What's the best use of our time, our limited time, especially considering how quickly we're destroying our environment and hurting these animals on a daily basis. And so when we heard you speak and everybody else speak at that summit, we just felt like, okay, we have to meet these people and figure out how to work together and really create a unifying message, a space, a platform for us all to really start gathering together and thinking about this problem on a really large scale, a holistic scale. And so we're incredibly grateful to have found out about the summit, and then I got to meet a bunch of people, incredibly compassionate, loving people with just being at that conference was very inspiring and changed our lives in multiple ways. And we're just,
including meeting Anne,
yeah,
who is helping us with this tour. And I mean, everyone we've met through Vegan World 2026 has been wonderful. But I mean, Anne, it's been so great to meet you and work with you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us to share during this summit with all of the other people that have been inspiring and inspirational and awesome and helped us to understand things so much differently. So my story, I went vegetarian in 1992 because I didn't want to hurt animals, and I thought that was a personal choice. And I didn't do the additional research into dairy and egg production or human health to understand what the rest of the things were about. And the environment wasn't even on my mind in 1992, quite honestly, in terms of what I ate. But then in 2013, my husband was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and given a prescription for metformin. And I said, no, we're not doing this. I know that this can be dealt with via food and exercise. And so literally between a Thursday and a Monday, we just got rid of everything in the house. I did some research and we got rid of all the white products, white flour, white sugar, all of the dairy and all of the eggs were gone. And we went vegan, and he reversed his type 2 diabetes in 6 weeks. Went
Whoa.
from, yeah. An A1C of 11 to 5.5 in 6 weeks. And we went back to our doctor and said, why didn't you tell us that we could do this so easily? And he said, because I didn't believe you would do it. I didn't believe anyone would do it. Now, honestly, we think he didn't do it because he didn't know about it. But that was what he told us. So now, 7 years later, he tells people all the time, and not everyone makes the change, but when we go in, he says, I got another one, you know, somebody else that did this. And so he's really excited about it and been sharing the message for 7 years. And then that led us to think about the idea that if we had been essentially lied to our entire lives about the food that we're eating, what else have we been misinformed about? And so then I started doing lots and lots of research about the environmental issues and the social justice issues, and you know what happens to slaughterhouse workers and field workers, and you know all of these things. And we became activists. We started, you know, writing letters and going to legislative hearings and going to protests and doing all sorts of things. And I was really struggling with, do I put my energy into the animal rights aspect of this, or do I put it into human health and get a certificate in diet and nutrition, or do I, you know, what is it that I do? And then through my research, I came across Climate Healers and started looking at the website and went, oh, wow, I don't have to pick and choose. I can do all of this at the same time. And I actually learned about you just before the first conference in October of 2018, but we had some familial responsibilities that we had to take care of, and I wasn't able to come. So throughout the year, I kind of paid attention to what was going on, and then was able to come in October of 2019 to the conference. And like Suzanne and Benjamin, well, like Benjamin, because he was there, Suzanne wasn't able to go, but I felt like I was coming home, that, you know, I had met people that understood the same things that I understood and made me feel sane when so many people imply that I may not be sane because of what I believe. And then I just wanted to get involved and begin to do things. And Benjamin and Suzanne and I are 3 people who all got onto a number of different groups within Climate Healers, too many to be really effective. But we started working together on a couple of different projects and found that we work really well together. So it was kind of fun. The first call about the Pinky Promise Tour, the question was asked, is there anyone who wants to help organize this? And like, there's a part of me that wants to, but then there's a part of me that says, I have no idea how to do this. I've organized lots of things in my professional career, but not a tour like this. And so I said, well, I kind of want to think about it, but I don't want to commit at this moment. And Suzanne said, well, what if I help you? And I was like, oh, okay, cool, let's do that. And the truth of the matter is, Suzanne has kind of just transitioned into taking the lead on everything around the Pinky Promise Tour. It's been absolutely delightful. She's just very energetic and very capable and been able to do all sorts of things. So it's like, it's not easy because there's things that we have to do, but there's an ease to this work and to working together that has been really delightful. So, so that's my story of how I got involved, and we'll talk a little bit more later about the number of different projects within Climate Healers. The Pinky Promise Tour is one of them. But now, Dr. Rao, we would like for you to share your story about the Pinky Promise Tour and what the Pinky Promise is and how that all came to be.
Yeah, well, the Pinky Promise, there is a long background to that. So maybe I'll go a little bit into that, you know. See, I'm an engineer. I was trained as an engineer, and I was working on the internet for a while, and then I switched to working on the environment in 2006 when I saw, 2005 December, when I saw Al Gore's presentation on TV, and I was shocked. I was shocked out of my wits, and I said, what is this? This is going on. Why isn't everybody working on this, right? So I started studying it, and didn't take too long to drill down to the food aspect of it, okay? And to realize that we have to change our food habits. So I went vegan in 2008, okay? So 2 years of intense study, and I went vegan. And then I thought, I'm an engineer, right? So basically, as an engineer, you tell the truth, and people say, yeah, you're right, and then they implement it. That's how it works. Because if you don't do that, You can be sitting for years with a product that doesn't work. So engineering is based on the truth and science. It has to be. Otherwise, you won't have internet working, you won't have laptops working, you won't have all of these things working. If we pretend something is true when it isn't, or we pretend something isn't true when it is, right? So as an engineer, I thought all I have to do is tell people the truth and the problem will be solved. I did that. I did that several times. And I noticed that people would hear me, or they would listen to what I was saying and they wouldn't hear me. So it's like, as if it went in one ear and went out the other ear. It's just, and I couldn't figure out why that was so. And I used to get angry with people too, because it's like, I'm used to my colleagues listening to me. Here, my colleagues would not listen to me at all. So it was a lesson, that I learned in that engineering is a special profession. Don't expect the same thing anywhere else. That's not the way the real world works. Okay. So then I was reminded of what, the fire that happened in my home when I actually discovered this academic, this respected professor, literally lying, right? So he was pretending that the fire wasn't caused by the car, even though he knew it was caused by the car. So it reminded me of that and said, okay, it's money that's driving this. So then I started looking into the rabbit hole, as to what is really going on. And I got very depressed. I thought we were all going to go to hell in a handbasket. Okay, that's it. Humanity is dead. I assumed that. I said, okay, we are all going to die. I just have to reconcile myself to this. And then my granddaughter was born. And when my granddaughter was born in 2010, she was born in Phoenix and I was living in the Bay Area. And so I came to see her when she was about a month old because my wife told me, you have to go see this girl. There's something special about her. So I went to see her when she was a month old and I held her in my arms and she looked up at me and she smiled. And that was it. She convinced me on the spot that this is not about death. This is about life. That we are going to get out of this. That this is the caterpillar turning to the butterfly. Okay. So that metamorphosis image came to me right away. And then I went and wrote my first book. As soon as I came back, I started writing my book. And that was Carbon Dharma, the occupation of butterflies. Okay. And so there again, I wrote down everything I knew and I said, it's fairly easy, simple. Solving this problem is very simple. You have to be just kind to all life. Right? So I went around talking about the Cinderella principles, how. Then I realized you have to tell a story. People have to realize that they are part of something much, much larger. And only then we say, yeah, okay, now it makes sense. So I started looking for that story. And that took me 5 years of research. And so I wrote Carbon Yoga as a result of that. That's how do you do it? But all along, I was following what was happening in the environment, and I could see the things getting worse and worse and worse, right? So I realized it's not a problem that has to be solved by 2050. It has to be solved very quickly. Okay? And I had calculated right after the World Wildlife Fund issued its 2016 Living Planet report, I became convinced that we are on track to wipe out all wild animals by 2026 at the current rate of killing. Okay, it's just a mathematical calculation. So I realized that the current system cannot continue till 2026. We are on, we have to change by then. And I was actually quite depressed that evening when I finished my calculations, and I was reading my granddaughter a story to put her to bed. And I don't even remember which story I read to her. But at the end of the story, she asked me, so Grandpa, who were the first human beings? And that's a very profound question, okay? And especially when I have promised to my granddaughter that I'll never, ever lie to her. I'll always tell her the truth. So I said, okay, I'll explain to you how it works. So imagine that you're standing on the street and holding your mother by your hand. And you ask your mother to bring her mother to stand by her side. And so you create a long line of mothers on this side of the street. And on the other side of the street, you ask a chimpanzee to do the same thing with her mother and her grandmother and so on. So I said, by the time these two lines go from Phoenix to Tucson, they would merge. There'll be only one single line because both lines are going to say, that's my mother too. Immediately she sat up in bed. She said, what? Are you telling me that animals are my family? And you know, I hadn't put it that way. I hadn't even thought of it that way. I knew it, intellectually as the theory of evolution. So I said, now that you put it that way, yeah, you're right. They are your family. She said, then why are people eating my family? Grandpa, make them stop. They're eating my family. And she started naming names. So-and-so is eating my family. So-and-so. All the people she knew that were eating animals, she was naming them. And I said, Kimaya, please, I'm trying. I've been trying to make them stop. In fact, it's a job to make them stop. And so immediately she stopped crying. She looked at me with her eyes wide open. She said, this is your job? This is your job? You know you haven't done your job. When will you do your job? In her mind, she was 6 years old at that time. In her mind, my job was to take their food away and give them vegan food. And I wasn't doing it. And I told her, well, I have to do it by 2026. Otherwise, we are all in big trouble. And she said, will you promise me that? I said, yeah, I'll promise you that. She said, will you give me a pinky promise? I said, sure, I'll give you a pinky promise. I had no idea what a pinky promise was. She just took my pinky and then she told me, you can never, ever break a pinky promise. And then she went to sleep. So the next morning I said, I have to start this seriously. I'm it. And all along I thought, who am I to say that the world has to be vegan by 2026? Who am I to start this? And she basically told me, you're it. You have to start it. And later, I realized as a system specialist, it is my job, to put things together, put everything together to say, how can this be done? Because you're literally changing the way we do everything. That's what a vegan world is, right? It's a system of normalized non-violence versus a system of normalized violence. And so it's my responsibility to actually do it. So she's kind of foisted it on me, and so that's how it started. The pinky promise happened. And of course, the next day she went and told her parents that, Grandpa's promised me that the whole world will be vegan by 2026. By the time I'm 16 years old, and they told her, what did you make Grandpa promise you? Do you know how hard it is to get people to go vegan? So she comes to me that evening and she says, Grandpa, I hear you have a tough job. So you don't have to do it by the time I'm 16. You can do it by the time I'm 17. So she gave me 1 extra year to do my job. So, but I see it as an education. I mean, it's basically an educational project and a solutions project. So it's coming up with solutions and telling people that this is part of who we are. We are transforming from where we are to where we need to be, for a sustainable world. We're all talking about sustainability, but no one really does it like an engineer does. An engineer who talks about sustainability will say, how can everything continue until infinity, right? That's what sustainability is. How can we live in a way that we can continue living like that forever?
So part of the thing that really drew me and other people that I've spoken with from within Climate Healers is the way that you tell stories and use stories to help people to understand what it is that's going on. So I'm wondering if you would take a few minutes to talk about the David story and how that relates to all of this before we get back into more detail about the Pinky Promise tour, so that people can have a big picture of the.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, the story of David, actually it comes from the story of my granddaughter making me think about what it is that we were doing all along, right? So I had to figure out what it is that we were doing all along, because to me, she was perfect. And so I said, if she's perfect, then we are all part of the same perfection of nature. We are all part of nature. And I had observed like an elephant, breaking branches of trees in the forest in India. And I remember asking my host, Pamela Malhotra at that time, isn't that elephant being destructive? And she said, no. Wherever the elephant breaks branches of trees, that's where the sunlight streams and nourishes the underbrush, right? And wherever the elephant tramples on bushes, that's where new pathways are formed in the forest. So everything the elephant does helps the forest in the long run. And so, but then I thought we were the only ones who don't belong, right, in the ecosystem, right? Human beings are the only ones that don't belong in the ecosystem. Take human beings out, the rest of the planet is fine. And so my granddaughter convinced me that that's not true, that we do belong exactly as we are. Okay? And go find a story in which we belong exactly as we are. So I set out to find that story. And then I realized that, it has been staring at me all along. And in fact, Jim Hansen had even said that. Jim Hansen had said, Jim Hansen is the most famous climate scientist on the planet. And he had said that as long as human beings are around, there'll be no more ice ages. I said, aha, well, that's true, right? As long as we're around, there'll be no more ice ages. So which means that if we get to a sustainable state, we are going to be maintaining the temperature of Earth forever. So we are the thermostat species. And we have been trained to be the thermostat species for the planet. So that to me, is like David, right? Michelangelo, after he sculpts David, imagine that, I don't know if he really did this or not, but imagine that he's trying to kill himself. Saying, oh my God, what a mess I've made, right? Look at the mess I've created on the floor with all the pieces of marble. Wouldn't you go and tell him, Michelangelo, stop, you've done something amazing. You have created this David, which is amazing. Just like we have done something amazing. We have created everything that the Earth needs for homeostasis, for maintaining the temperature on Earth, so that the Earth can never, ever go back to another ice age. We have done everything we need for that. Okay? And now we are in the process of killing ourselves off. So stop it, We have to tell, and then Michelangelo would say, imagine Michelangelo saying, how can I clean this up with a hammer and a chisel? Wouldn't you tell him you need a different set of tools? You cannot do it with a hammer and a chisel. You have to clean up with a bucket and a shovel. So it's a different set of tools we need to move from our caterpillar phase to the butterfly phase, right? So now we are done with the sculpting. Now we are done with all the sculpting. Now we have to enjoy the David we have created. So we have done something amazing as a species, right? That all other animals will eventually, they will appreciate that. So you've done something of life as a species.
What I love about that story is it brings such a positive message in that we have all the tools we need to take care of these problems on Earth and to become the caretaker species that we were meant to be. And I just love that positive aspect to it, and that's kind of ties into the purpose of the Pinky Promise Tour, which is not only that message of positivity, but to come together and really start painting this as an opportunity, like the greatest opportunity we've ever had to become the thermostat species and regulate the temperature of our planet in a way that is sustainable for many generations to come. And so to kind of to bring this together with the Pinky Promise Tour, when we first set out working on this, it was going to be an in-person tour, about 2.5 months long. There were going to be somewhere between 40 and 60 events. And we started reaching out to people through our base camp network, which is what we're using as the platform to communicate about the Vegan World 2026 project. And the response was incredible. The response was so positive too that it was only more it only confirmed itself or inspired us to keep working on it, because the response of these people who were interested in becoming a part of the Pinky Promise Tour was so great. So we spent quite a bit of time working on this in-person tour, and along came this physical manifestation that's so obvious, this super clear, hey, what we're doing right now isn't quite sustainable. We're going to have to make some changes. And, just like everybody else is being affected by this, our tour was affected by this. So we ended up having a few discussions and talking about, okay, well, how do we take this and turn it into something even better? And that's when we decided to turn it into a virtual tour. And I'm going to let either Suzanne and Anne talk a little bit more about the details of the virtual tour. But the original goal was to inspire, Suzanne, Anne, and I are all certified climate healers, to inspire other people to become certified climate healers in their local communities, start climate healer groups, which involves spreading this message, sharing documentary screenings, bringing people together around this idea that we can make this transformation together, and as well as inspire the current vegan movement to really unify and co-create this new paradigm that we all want to live in, that is in alignment with all of our values. And with that, I'll let Suzanne continue.
I guess, Dr. Rao, can you speak a little bit to kind of the original purpose and the bigger vision that we have now, with it being, we can reach a global audience now with it being a virtual tour?
Right.
And
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, in fact, because of you, you're now connecting with people around the world, and we can now schedule events on Zoom virtually. So people can either watch documentaries and then have a Q&A with me and Kip Anderson, who it's about conspiracy or what the health, or with Thomas Jackson if it's on prayer for compassion. So we have done a number of movies that will be part of the tour that people can watch and then have a Q&A with us. Or they can request a talk where I tell them about this new story, the story of David, the story of the caterpillar and the butterfly, and how we are in the cocoon right now, in the chrysalis phase, and how we are going to be birthing out of this into becoming butterflies. And it's going to happen within the next 6 years. So this is an exciting time to be alive, that we will all look back on and say, we were part of that. We are part of that. So yeah, it is. It's exciting for me. It's exciting for Kimaya. Kimaya now is saying, oh, I can be on all of them. So, because she wants to be part of this, because she literally drove this. She's my boss, right? My granddaughter is my boss. And so she sometimes gets on Zoom calls with you all, and she will say things like, yeah, thank you for doing your work. Yeah.
I know, I love that.
Right.
Hey, Dr. Rao, can you back up just a little bit and talk about the documentaries that you have been involved with? Because I'm guessing that there are people in our audience who are not aware of Climate Healers' involvement or participation in the number of documentaries that you have been.
Yeah. Well, it came about because the first thing I did was to write a book, right? I wrote Carbon Dharma, and I thought, hey, it's now out there. People can just read it and they will know how to solve the problem. and I realized people don't read books anymore. So I hardly had maybe a couple of thousand people buying my books and reading it. So then I said, there must be a better way of getting to people. And I was talking to, I was trying to get Al Gore to go. We can have him talk about it, and he wouldn't do it. So I was getting frustrated by that. So this was, I think, the end of 2012, 2013, January is when I even went and protested in front of Al Gore's thing, I mean, I was an activist, right? I was trying to get people to change, but I couldn't do it. And then someone told me about this movie called The Human Experiment. And there's a documentary being made. Would you like to support that? Because they're talking about the chemical pollution of the planet. And I had witnessed that, in India. I had seen the chemical pollution of the villages. In fact, the village women in India die 8 years younger than the men. And I had tried to find out why that was the case. We discovered it was because of the chemical pollution in the wood that they were burning. The wood that they were burning was full of industrial chemicals. And it was coming from the factories far away. So it was going up in the air, coming down in the rain, is being absorbed by trees, and the trees are good filters. So they filter out the chemicals and store them in their trunks. That the women were burning those trunks, and they were basically as if they were smoking a pack of cigarettes every time they cook. So when the opportunity came, I told my wife, we need to support them, and we need to be involved in this documentary so that the story gets out about the women. So we got involved. And that got awards. It got on Netflix. A lot of people watched it. I said, that's so much more effective than writing a book. So then when Cowspiracy came along, I said, we are it. We're going to support this too. So, and because Cowspiracy was exactly what I was trying to tell Al Gore. And these two kids, I looked at them as my sons. It's like my children who had done this movie, right? Kip and Keegan, and it resonated so much with everything I had been saying to Al Gore. So we got involved with that, and then of course when they did What the Hell, and we saw the Cowspiracy just take off, and reach so many people, change so many people. So when they did What the Hell, he said sure. We got involved with that, and then we did A Prayer for Compassion, so that it looks at it from an religious angle as well. So I looked at it as health, environment, animals, and love. So when you do that, you're healing. So that's HEAL, heal. So I got involved with Prayer for Compassion. So that became like, another way for us to convey the information to people in a more palatable fashion so that they can understand what's going on. And of course, we are now involved in 2 more documentaries. One is The Land of Ahimsa, which is about India and the dairy industry in India and animal abuse in India. Because, when I was growing up, I was told the story that we are the land of Ahimsa. We don't hurt animals at all. And then when you open your eyes and you see, wow, there's so much animal abuse going on there. But people don't see it. So that Dolly is doing that movie, and we are part of that. And then Keegan, and I'll be interviewing Keegan again in the summit about the documentary about pandemics, animal agriculture and pandemics, that Keegan and Alex Lockwood are doing. So we've become executive producers of that too.
And can you talk about Countdown to Year Zero just a bit?
Oh yes, Countdown to Year Zero was it's a movie made about the Vegan World 2026 project. This is Jane Wells Mitchell made that movie, and it's now on Amazon Prime. It's also won Jane a number of awards, so she did a great job on the movie. But it looks at it from not just from our perspective, but from all the other animal rights activists who are also wanting to see a vegan world happen. And so the Vegan World 2026 project, I sort of, modeled it along what I knew, which is how I did the internet, which is, I was working on the internet, which was basically working with a group of people. So you're just one contributor in a group of people, and we are making sure that everything fits. So it's like making a huge Lego building, right? But using little Lego blocks and making sure that every Lego block fits in this. And so that's how we started the Vegan World 2026 project in that same model, so that people can contribute to different aspects of what a vegan world would look like, how it will transition, and how and what it will look like when we get there. So the project was started in 2018. The first conference happened in 2018. Then we had another one last year, 2019. And it's in its infancy, phase. But the idea is the same. The idea is to now have groups of people writing different aspects of what does an economy look like? What is how do we do nature stewardship? How do we do food distribution? So all of these things we have to now figure out how will this happen in a system of normalized nonviolence? Because in a system of normalized violence, people are doing it because if they don't do it, they're going to go hungry. So it's based on fear, right? The current system is entirely based on fear. So if you do a system based on love, how would you do that? So you say, well, you need to create a game in which people are feeling secure about themselves, first of all. And then they can say, how will I contribute? So how do you then manage the contributions in a way that the community, things get done for the community?
It took me a while to really understand. So the economy part of this work is something that I had not really thought about until I got involved with Climate Healers. And it took me a while to really understand the idea that our current economic model is a game, that we made it up, that we really made it up. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit more about that whole idea and how people can begin to see that since we created that model, we have the ability, the power to create another model.
Yeah, it's a game, right? So as you said, it's a game. When I realized it's a game, it's basically the game of money, of monopoly. So we're literally playing a large game of monopoly. People are acquiring properties and then renting it out, and we are playing monopoly as adults. Okay, and so we have the rules of the game. The rules of the game are only a few entities can create this thing called money. And so who knows who they really are? We don't even know who owns the Federal Reserve, right, in our system. I mean, it's supposed to be having a democracy here. We don't even know who creates the money. Right? And so in that game, all money is created in the form of loans, and it has to be returned back. So it's a zero-sum game. And when you create a game like that, it's entirely based on fear. Because when you borrow money, you have to say, how am I going to return it back? Oh my God, I have to work like crazy to return it back, right? And so you have to first convince the banker that you can return it back, and then you have to go implement that. Otherwise, the banker will come after you, and they're going to take away your assets, your collateral. So it's entirely based on fear. The entire game is based on fear. And it has been drilled into our head that it's only through fear that people do things. They can never do things out of love. Okay? And I have been part of another group here, and that my wife actually runs the volunteer for that, and volunteer team for that. And that's called the Community Kitchen. And the Community Kitchen, to me, was an example of a game that was entirely run by love, through love. You don't have to threaten people at all. Okay? You just tell people, I need someone to wash the dishes. I need someone to sweep the floor. I need someone to mop the floor. And any volunteers? And people volunteer. It was fascinating to watch that happen. People volunteer because they were given food to eat to start with. So they felt like they belonged in the community. When they belong in the community, they want to do something for the community. And I realized it's innate in us to do things out of love. Because I've had several occasions where Kimaya would cry because she didn't get to wash the dishes. She didn't get to mop the floor. I said, have you ever seen a kid crying because she couldn't mop the floor? She wants to mop the floor. She wants to help. And then we convinced her, look, when you're a little bit older, you can do it. And now she's doing it. So now she is happy. She can mop the floor. She's graduated to that level. We want to contribute to the community. Okay. In fact, all the people who volunteer in the Community Kitchen, if you told them, we'll pay you $15 an hour, would you mop the floor? They would say no. They wouldn't do it for the money. They do it because they want to belong. So I realized that we can actually create another game, a different game in which people feel secure. So they get universal basic income, universal basic shelter, universal basic healthcare built in to the system. Okay, and then they each want to, they each have an opportunity to contribute to the well-being of the community. And they can then say, well, you know, the beach needs to be cleaned, the ocean needs to be cleaned, or, you know, the roads need to be cleaned. How do we do that? People need to be fed. So how do we do that? We need to grow food. How do we do that? So where can I contribute? So you're looking for where do we contribute? And we need to coordinate this and make sure that things that need to be done are done. So maybe there are a bunch of necessities that need to be done. And then we have a list of tasks that we can create on that. And people can say, I want to volunteer there because I need 3 people for doing this, 10 people for doing that. So you can say, which one do you want to volunteer in, right? And someone could be saying, I want to contribute by giving you the organization of it, right? So we can create an entire system based on volunteerism in which everyone feels secure, including the people who are now, you know, doing all the drudgery for us. They also should feel secure. Okay.
And that's actually the basis of Vegan World 2026 and Climate Healers, right? So people become involved because they want to belong and they want to contribute, not
Exactly.
because they're being paid.
Right.
So again, would you like to chat a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it is also modeled on the same internet standards body that I was part of. Because there also we were all volunteers and we were all doing things for the good of the whole. But there were, you know, corporations sending people there because they knew that it was going to make money for them later. Okay, but what they agreed to was that their employees would go there as individuals. That they would leave their corporate hat at the door when they come in. Okay. Not that it always happened, but initially it was happening. All I know is that initially it was happening, and it was part of something that I'm really proud of. That I'm so happy to have seen that happen. You know, where people come together to work together to make something happen, and then give it away. We gave it away. The standards were all given away for free. So my idea was to model that, you know, use that as the model for Vegan World 2026, and say we're all volunteers. But even there, you know, even though we were all volunteers, we hired one person to come and say, it's the job of that person was to make sure that all the volunteers did their jobs. So we had this coordinator that we hired, because we realized that if it was only volunteers, it just doesn't get done. Things don't get done because there is no one to sort of push things, right? So we hired one person to take care of us. And so I used that as a model here as well. In fact, initially for the first year, there were no hired employees. And I know it was just floundering around. Nothing really happened. And then once we hired Ray, I think we saw the activity level just shoot up exponentially in the Vegan World 2026 project. So.
And how do people get involved? How do people decide to join?
Well, people have to, if people feel like they want to join and they want to contribute, they can just get on the Climate Healers homepage and you'll see a pop-up. And the pop-up will say, do you want to join the Vegan World 2026 project? And you say yes, and it'll take you to a survey. You fill in the survey and it shows all the projects that are happening within Vegan World 2026, and they can sign on to whichever ones they want to join. So that's how it has been happening. And now we are figuring out how to do the documentation. So like in the white paper that I wrote, I want to make that a public document. And there's a book that we are writing that we're going to be talking about on farming for the planet. that Renee Kingsonen and Margot Curry are working on that. And so we want to make that also a part of a public document. So we are now creating like a platform, just like we did in the internet era. We wrote standards, we wrote these recommendations for how to do things, and people just used them, you know, and so we gave it away for free. So we want to do something very similar here. And so we're looking at the platform. We have evaluated one platform that looks good called Kipwise. So we'll probably use that and start putting these documents out so that it comes with the Vegan World 2026 stamp. And I want that to become the stamp of quality for people to say, well, if you want to have a system of normalized nonviolence that all works well together, go to the Vegan World 2026 project and follow the recommendations.
Well, I personally love the idea that Vegan World 2026 and Climate Healers is modeling the whole idea of living in a nonviolent world and giving things away. And things are being done via volunteers who choose to participate with as much time and energy as they have. Right. And that there isn't a sense of guilt if you don't have more time. Right now you don't have more time, but whatever it is that you are contributing is really pretty cool. Right. And I've never seen it before, but looking at the copy left on Carbon Dharma when I first got it, I just loved that. A copy left, you can use any part of this book in any way that you want for any reason. It was just such a delightful and unexpected thing to just have that. But the idea that you're actually modeling it and that the rest of us are learning it as we go is really cool, really cool. So the tours, I remember that shortly after the conference, you did a physical tour in India.
Right.
And then decided to do the North American tour, which has now turned into the virtual tour. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about your vision for what happens because of the tour.
So the tour in India was designed to energize the vegan movement in India. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go and talk to the vegan movement in India and when people know that a vegan world is possible by 2026, then they work for it. But if you think it cannot be done, you don't work for it. So that is the human condition, right? If you think, oh, it cannot be done, we just say, yeah, you know, someone's talking about it. Who knows whether it's going to happen or not? So I wanted to go talk to the vegan community and to convince them that it is going to happen, that it is possible to happen, and it is going to happen because a lot of people are already working on it. So then you get people from around the world saying, yes, it can happen, and it is going to happen. Therefore, I want to be part of it. That becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I wanted to try that out in India. It's going to go for, because in India, traveling is also very inexpensive for me. And I had lots of people that I knew that would host me. So anyway, I got Pareen Sachdeva organized that for me. And it was incredible. It was incredible. I was talking to students. I was talking to the vegan communities. And I left every city more energized than when I went in. Okay? And I said, no, I want to do this here too, you know, in North America. I want to do the same thing. Just tell them about the Vegan World 2026 project and why it is going to happen. Look at the statistics, look at exponential growth. Just like we now are learning about exponential growth with the virus, the same thing is true for positive things too. Okay, that's also an exponential growth. So veganism has grown by a factor of 6, a factor of 7 in 3 years. Okay? So just put that together, you'll see how fast it's growing. So this is why I had the idea of doing something here. And now it's going to become a virtual tour, and now it's a virtual world tour. I mean, there are people from Europe who are contacting us, right? I mean, tell me,
Yes, yeah, we have a Luxembourg one scheduled, and we are open for business. So if anyone else would like to schedule either a conversation with Dr. Rao or a family event or a children-friendly event with Kamaya, you can find our Facebook page. It's just the Pinky Promise Tour on Facebook. And you know, in addition to kind of letting the vegan community know that a vegan world by 2026 is possible if we all work on it, one thing this new global virtual tour is allowing us to do is to do these weekly mini conferences where we actually get to come together and start working on it. So the first one, I know Renee is in the audience here. We're hoping to do a conference, the first one on transformation. So looking at our food system and our farms and how can we all come together and focus on that, do a working session on that. And we'll have other working sessions every Saturday. And yeah, I love that we get the opportunity to come together too and actually start talking on these subjects.
And there's if you go to the Facebook page, Pinky Promise Tour, there is a link to a survey if you'd like to get involved. Ultimately, we want you to get involved in Basecamp and Vegan World 2026 project, but we'd also love for you to help us organize some local, more town hall or discussion-like events in your community. And the survey that's on Facebook is a little more detailed in terms of dates and what would be involved in that. So we'd really appreciate if anyone listening here took a look at that and helped us out by filling it out if they're interested in helping us co-host or sponsor an event. And so within that survey, there are 5 ways for you to be involved. And I'm going to have Suzanne read those. She mentioned a couple of them already.
Dr. Rao has some awesome presentations that he can give to, you know, either if you have a nonprofit that you work with. We have some like corporate green teams are contacting us to have a discussion. And again, a family-friendly event with Kamaya. One of the mini conferences that will be on specific topics. We're doing online documentary screenings, which Dr. Rao mentioned. And then lastly, we are doing a launch event on Earth Day that we would love everyone to be involved in. So April 22nd at 8 a.m., 1 p.m., and 8 p.m. Pacific time, so we can address everyone around the globe. And yeah, that we would love everyone to be involved.
Thank you so much. Deborah, are there any questions? That I'm sure there are plenty of questions out there.
Hello.
Rebecca, you want to start?
Yes, hi everyone. One of the questions is, can you tell more about the 7 core shifts that we must make in terms of climate healers? You've talked about the economics, but can you tell more about the others?
Yeah, the 7 core shifts are from speciesism, colonialism, racism, ableism, patriarchy, all the isms that are oppressing us, to veganism and radical equality. That's the first one. Second is from diseases and divisions among humanity to health and unity among humanity. Health has to be fundamental to us, right? And unity among us. From destruction and pollution of the planet to remediation and regeneration of the planet. From death and cruelty to animals to love and kindness for animals. From a culture of consumption to a culture of compassion. From a money-driven economy to a service-driven economy. And from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. So, because we live in an abundant world, we are actually extracting 6 times as much food as we really need. But most of it is being fed to our animals. And so there is a 40-to-1 reduction that happens through the animals. And so we are getting a little bit of animal food out of that. That's how we create an artificial scarcity from an abundance. So we need to go back to the natural abundance and live with that. Yeah, this is the greatest transformation in human history.
It is, isn't it? It reminds me of that chart that you have of how we started with fire and here we are in technology.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every time there has been a major shift in human civilization, we changed how we harnessed energy. We changed the food we ate, and we changed how we communicated. Right. So initially, when it was fire, so it was the discovery of fire, the controlled use of fire. So fire was the energy. So we could burn wood for our energy. And for communication, it was language, right? And for food, we could now start hunting animals. And then the agricultural revolution, it was harnessing animals for energy. For food, it was growing our own food, agriculture. And for communication, it was writing. So we invented writing so that we can tabulate what we were growing and so on. And then in the Industrial Revolution, it was using fuels, fossil fuels for energy. And then for food, it was raising these animals for food instead of using them for energy. And for communication, it was the printing press. So I'm saying today there is something similar happening. For energy, it is solar energy, clean energy, wind, solar energy. For food, it's veganism, because we are shifting away from animals to eating plants. And for communication, it's the internet that's connecting us around the world and letting us realize that we are just one humanity, that there is no difference among us. So this is the greatest transformation among all the other transformations. This is the greatest transformation that's happening.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We have somebody here from Ireland, Clary Smith. I'm not sure I'm saying her name right. And she is inviting us to participate or share information on a group called beyondanimals.com.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I would love that. Yeah, it's when all of us come together and have a common goal, a common platform, that we are going to get bigger and bigger. We're going to get more and more audience for our message.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Rao. I'll say that when I first met you, which was less than a year ago, I heard you speak in Houston at a vegan conference there. And, like so many people, and maybe a lot of people can relate to this, I was just watching, it's like our entire human race, like going full speed into disaster, our own extinction, and going, okay, so there's some talk out there about like that we need to do something about this, but how the heck are we going to do it? Because in my mind, I was seeing there's just the animal agriculture industry, which was so destructive to the planet and to the animals, of course, and to the human health and all of it, which is such a key factor there. I could see how, yes, it's easy to go vegan. I couldn't see how we can get it untangled from the economy and from the jobs, so many people's jobs and all of this stuff. So I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, we've got to make a huge change in a very short amount of time. But how do we get there from here, right? How in the heck is this going to happen? And then I heard you speak and you said Vegan World 2026, and you gave talked about what needs to happen. And I jumped out of my seat and raised my hand and I said, okay, how are we going to get there from here? And you started talking about having a plan. And I said, sign me up. I'm in. I want to be a part of that, because if somebody's got a plan and a place to plug into where we can really do it in a way that is thoughtful and intentional and moving toward a very necessary goal, then absolutely. And I think that's what has inspired a lot of people to raise their hands and say, yes, where can I plug in? How can I be a part of this? Let's do it intentionally, meaningfully, effectively, and really see the results that we need to see in order, you know, to survive and to just live in a place of compassion and, as you say, normalize non-violence with our earth and all of the inhabitants. So I greatly appreciate having Climate Healers as a platform for that. And who better to lead it but an engineer who's really got the big picture down and the details. So thank you for that.
No, I have to say it's my granddaughter who's leading it. I'm just, I'm a puppet. Okay, so I'm going to do whatever she wants. So she asked for this, and this is what I'm going to do.
Well, and you're doing a good job, Grandpa. So
Okay.
and I have to say, I mean, you know, they're the children that are coming onto the planet right now. They get it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at where our strong messages are coming from. Is the younger generation, and they're saying, you guys, you can't keep doing this to us. And so they are our leaders right now. And so thank you to Kamaya, and thank you to you for listening to Kamaya and for mobilizing this effort. Now we'll go to a question on Facebook or suggestion. This is from Jessica, and she says, Thomas from Prayer for Compassion, he shared a great idea today. He said some people are planning on trying to get a lot of people to watch A Prayer for Compassion on Easter weekend. Maybe we can do this soon in the US, and then maybe we can have some talks, Q&A after that via Zoom. Is
Absolutely.
that an option for Pinky Promise Tour, or for what's coming up? What is Easter, like April the
12th.
12th? Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, we'll still be in the
absolutely.
summit by then.
Yeah, we'll be in the summit, but the summit is just 1 hour, right? So I'm saying any hour outside that, I'm happy to do whatever it takes. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Can I add to that really quickly?
Mm-hmm.
On the Pinky Promise Tour Facebook page, the link that Benjamin referenced to the survey, there is a way to check off that you'd like to be involved in a Prayer for Compassion online screening. So if that, I think that sounds like a great idea, and that is the place to go to get involved.
Awesome.
And Suzanne, is that on Facebook as well as on the web? Could you?
Yeah, it's facebook.com/Pinky Promise Tour. I think you can just search for the Pinky Promise Tour on Facebook and find it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. So we have on the Q&A box on Zoom, it says, not a question, but anything I can do to help, particularly to dispel the myths that animal foods, quote unquote foods, are necessary for health, I'm in. Let me know how I can help. And that's from Dr. Priya, who was here a couple days ago, who was just fabulous. So
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this summit so far.
On both ends.
On both ends, James Hicks, Dr. McDougall, Dr. Chung, Dr. Mars.
And the listeners too, in the comments box.
Dr. Knight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm really grateful to them that they gave their valuable time to us, to help us out with this.
Yeah, the information has been fabulous, and the people that have been adding comments and asking questions have helped to make this really awesome. And we still have a number of sessions to go, and then an all-day event on Saturday, April 18th.
That's correct. Yeah.
We're still in the first third of the summit. So thank you very much for sharing some of that background information about Vegan World 2026 and what all of this, how this all fits together. I think that's really helpful for people to know.
Well, thank you for asking those questions, and thank you for participating in all this. been incredible.
Can you all clarify for people one more time about how to contact or how to enter into Climate Healers if they want to get involved? Somebody's asking, do you have to have a Facebook account? And I know that's not the case. So can you just clarify that?
So if you go to climatehealers.org, climatehealers.org, then you can get involved directly through the survey that comes in.
Okay,
Facebook
so on the
is
homepage, there's an option to take a survey.
right.
Yeah, it'll pop up in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
Okay, great.
Great.
Okay, and Silas, did I interrupt you? What you were about to say? Something else? I popped in there.
Not really. I saw a message from Claire Smith. Think about a digital platform, an app. I would love to evaluate that. I would love to participate in that.
Great.
Great. I think we've handled all the questions. I would just thank you again, Dr. Rao. I feel very grateful to be a part of this work, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the tour continues to evolve as we all continue to evolve.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say tomorrow we're going to be talking to Arvind and Nandini Paranjpe and Jean-Francois Nobel on alternate currencies and how do we create a new economy, a compassionate economy in the COVID-19 era. So how can we create this app that helps people start contributing right now, so that we can transition to a vegan world. So that's tomorrow, and then we're going to be talking about with Keegan and Alex on Sunday about a new documentary on pandemics and animal agriculture, and so on. So you can see the list on coronahealers.org. So thank you all for participating. It's been a great hour with you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Lots of gratitude coming in on Facebook too. Thank you all.
Great.